I think we have to ask three things in this debate. Is the globe warming, or is the climate changing in an unusual way? I don't even believe we can answer yes to that. But if we could, then the next question we have to ask ourselves is man the cause of that? Because if the climate is changing and we're not causing it, all of the retrenchment of industrialization that we are talking about around the world in the name of reducing our carbon footprint would be useless. We're not causing it, we can't stop it. And the third question we have to ask ourselves is, okay, if it's happening and we're causing it, will it be harmful? Now, I can't imagine that the weather in Regina was much better this winter or in Winnipeg than it was in Edmonton. The snow cover in the northern hemisphere this year was the greatest it has been since 1966. This has been the toughest winter in central Canada since they got the last tough winter they deserved. What the hell? Honey, I know the weather's bad because I can't see Mississauga from the CN Tower. I can't see the west coast of Toronto. But let's start, because one winter does not a climate make. I think there's a real disparity in coverage because every time there is a single day in New York or Toronto or Washington or Atlanta, a single day that breaks a temperature record 60 or 70 years old, it is a front page or top of the newscast story. We're told that this one day is proof that global warming is happening and it's going to be dangerous and this is what we should get used to. I always ask this. I remember there was one last summer in New York City where the temperature at 3 in the afternoon in Central Park was hotter than it had been since 1893. Okay, so what made it hot in 1893? It wasn't my SUV. And I always ask people, say, it's the hottest it's been in 100 years. Well, why was it hot 100 years ago? Because it couldn't have been global warming. It certainly couldn't have been man-made global warming. And what makes you think you can tell that a hot day today is caused by carbon dioxide in the atmosphere when a similarly hot day 111 years ago couldn't possibly have been caused by the same thing? I got into a debate with a professor from the University of Alberta one time over the drought in the Great Sand Hills. Now, those of you who have not been to the Great Sand Hills, they're in the southwest corner of this province. They are but a few miles north of where my grandparents lived most of their lives. And they're a remarkable place. They're dunes in the middle of Saskatchewan. And this esteemed professor from the University of Alberta, who is perhaps the university's most famous scientist, wrote a letter to the editor in response to a piece I'd written saying, Gunter's all wrong because the Great Sand Hills, and let's say anything about the Great Sand Hills, Gunter's all wrong because the Great Sand Hills in Saskatchewan are expanding at as rapid a rate as they did during the Great Depression, and as we know from our Aboriginal brothers that they did in previous centuries. I wrote another column. I said, David is a very good scientist. But if they expanded like this in the Depression, and they expanded like this several times in previous centuries, why are we alarmed about this expansion? Doesn't that seem to indicate that there might be a natural pattern to the expansion and contraction of the Great Sand Hills that has nothing to do with whether or not I idle my Ford Expedition in my driveway overnight just to annoy the environmentalists? Was it 2 weeks ago that there was Earth Hour where we're all supposed to turn off the lights? We were at a dinner party with some very dear friends. And our hostess is an absolutely charming woman. But at 8 o'clock, she shut off all the lights, lit a whole bunch of candles around the tables. We dished our plates by flashlight. And I said, Lonnie, you realize that these candles are emitting soot, and that soot is far more detrimental to global warming, far more likely to trap heat than carbon emissions from the power plants that would fuel the lights if you would kindly turn them back on. I did not persuade her. We ate an hour in the dark, but I did leave my truck run extra long that day. But that's too what we're up against. We're up against the niceness factor. Nice people don't want bad things to happen to the earth. So they will engage in what, to me, are completely meaningless and hollow. I mean, we had a story in the Edmonton Journal after Earth Hour was over saying that this Saturday, between 8 and 9, there was 1.5% less energy consumed in Edmonton than there had been the previous Saturday between 8 and 9. Yes, of course there was, because there was an extra week of daylight. The sun didn't go down till almost 8:45. People didn't need to turn on. They didn't know Earth Hour was going on. I mean, this is the sort of hollow symbolism that appeals to upper middle class people who have more time on their hands than they know what to do with. But I want to ask you, I want to give you one good example. I hope to give you several, but I want to give you one particular example of what we're talking about here scientifically. I don't expect anybody here to be able to say this is more of a rhetorical question. Just how much carbon dioxide is there in the Earth's atmosphere?
Not enough.
What percentage of the atmosphere? 1% is way too high. It's 4/100ths of a percent. Every time I say that, or I write that, and I say that, you know, this is a very tiny fraction of the atmosphere, somebody will write in and say, yes, but dioxins are very toxic and they will kill you even in small. Yes, but it's carbon dioxide, it's not dioxin. I'm not talking about the fact that we've released poison gas into the air. All of us in this room have been exhaling carbon dioxide all evening.
Some more than others.
Some more than others. I'm so animated. I'm trying to increase my carbon footprint. But when you say 4/100ths of a percent, it's very hard for people to grasp that. So I give you an example of what that is. First of all, carbon dioxide can be hazardous to human health. Carbon dioxide can give you, it could kill you. If you walked into a sealed room full of nothing but carbon dioxide, you'd have no oxygen. It would displace the oxygen in your lungs and you'd die. But in order for you to get lightheaded from carbon dioxide in the air, its concentration would have to be 100 times what it is now. It would have to be about 4 or 4.5% of the atmosphere before you get a headache. We're not talking about you getting sick. We're not talking about asthmatics dropping in the streets. We're talking about people having slight nausea or a little bit of a throb in their temples. At 100 times the concentration it is now. And I'm not saying that you can then just endlessly pump carbon into the atmosphere and not expect any adverse consequences, but we're not talking about a huge amount of greenhouse gas in the air.